So we're in for a treat this morning. As Tim said, my name is Khalia Collier. I'm the owner and general manager at the St. Louis Surge, our women's professional basketball team here. And I am absolutely blown away by the power of eSports. The gentlemen that we have with us this morning truly have flown in from all over and across the world. So if I could have you gentlemen please stand and feel free to grab a seat wherever you like, and we're going to deep dive right into this industry this morning. Some of you may know a little bit about eSports, and some of you actually have no idea. You just thought it was interesting. Tim and Art pulled you out, and Stadia is an amazing, amazing, amazing organization, so why wouldn't you be here this morning? And what my gentlemen are going to talk about today is going to give us a brief overview of exactly what the power of eSports is, and the potential opportunities, the future, and where we are right now in the present. So Dan, I'm going to have you start off. Can you give us kind of a brief overview of your background and how you were here today?
Hey, I'm Dan. I'm a Maryville student. Working now? Okay. Hi, I'm Dan Clerke. I'm a Maryville student. I've been in the esports industry for about 7 years now. I started out as a player, and now I'm an owner. I also started the Maryville esports program. We're currently 95-0. I've won championships in 7 different titles without investor funding. We've pocket funded the entire thing, and I'm hoping to bring a franchise here to St. Louis.
Nice, thank you, Dan. Akshay?
Working? My name's Akshay Khanna. I head up business strategy for the Philadelphia 76ers, the New Jersey Devils, and Crystal Palace. I was one of those kids who never played video games because my parents kicked me out of the house because they were like, go play real sports. And I wish that hadn't been the case now because, you know, as these guys are going to tell you, it's an incredible world out there. So we became the first professional sports team to invest in an esports franchise, 2 esports franchises actually. My personal background, so I come from outside of the sports world, spent a few years in the investing world at a couple of different private equity firms. Went to business school, decided that I was truly passionate about sports, and ended up with the Sixers.
So I'm Christopher Mykles, better known in the esports world by my ID, which is what we all go by, which is MonteCristo. I'm a professional commentator. I've been in the industry for 12 years, so I do sports commentary for a Korean television station called OGN, which has been broadcasting professional esports on TV for 15 years now. I've done 7 different titles previously. I've also been a professional coach, manager, former team owner, journalist, basically done everything besides being a professional player myself in the industry, and now I'm here.
Garvey?
Hi, I'm Garvey. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships at Twitch. Got my start in gaming in 1993 as a pro player for a card game called Magic the Gathering. Been traveling the world, learning as much as I can about the industry. Spent 5 years in China, a year in Korea, several years in Europe. And right now I'm currently putting a student program together for Twitch, and just trying to think of 3- and 5-year plans for the company to help grow the industry and add some sustainability. Oh, and Twitch is also a live broadcasting platform. It's the medium where everybody gets the tournaments and does individual broadcasts and just expresses themselves creatively and competitively.
So we literally have provided a wide range of expertise within esports. And we're going to start it off with a brief overview. What is esports? What is your role in it, and kind of what does that consist of? What does that athlete look like? Or are they an athlete, Dan?
I don't want to get into that whole debate, but the typical esports athlete, they get to professional level around the age of 15. There are regulations within the leagues that don't allow them to compete until they're 17 in the top leagues. And they go all the way up to 23 when real life commitments come into play and you can't spend 12 hours a day practicing anymore. So esports to me is just competitive video games. I work within esports on the grassroots level. You guys are all here because, well, we sold at the Staples Center and stuff like that, but no, that's cool and all unless we have a base. So I work on all the grassroots stuff with Maryville and making sure that the average kid gets the opportunity to get a college scholarship out of it, or be able to follow their passion instead of being forced into something else that they don't want to do.
And Christopher, I mean, you truly are a veteran. You're a young veteran. You've seen the industry grow from, 18. Can you kind of give us an idea of what is an average esports pro athlete making? And from bottom of the level, mid-range to the top player?
Obviously, so when we talk about esports, we're actually talking about an industry that spans multiple games. Like we'd be talking about sports being basketball or football. So we're talking about several different gaming titles at any point in time that are a revolving door. Typically, titles don't last more than 5 to 10 years before the next title sort of takes hold as the industry develops, new technology comes along, new games are released. So when we talk about average salaries, you have to keep in mind that there is sort of there's a cycle that things go through. So League of Legends is currently the largest title in the world in terms of esports as well as player base. There are 100 million active users and viewership as well. So if we're talking about League, which is at the high end, typically North American players will make anywhere between $60,000 and $600,000 a year, depending on whether they've been the star level of the players. Internationally in China, certain players that are very popular or famous can make millions a year. The best player in the world is a South Korean player named Faker. You guys may have seen there was a feature article in the ESPN magazine about him last year. That you can look up if you haven't seen it already. And he currently is in the $1.5 million range in terms of salary.
So clearly, we're not talking, this isn't small dollar amounts here. This is on the upwards of an average salary of $150,000, mid-range $500,000 to $600,000, where you're making a couple $1 million.
And that's purely salary. They also have other ways that they can earn money through Garvey's platform and live broadcasting and other avenues like independent sponsorships and stuff like that.
And prize money too. Yeah, and Twitch is very interesting because it allows the players to basically, in esports you have a way to monetize your practice. It would be like, LeBron James while he's, practicing shooting free throws, having a camera on him and talking to an audience.
Right, and answering questions about why he might have did a crossover instead of behind the back, or you get a kind of a picture into the mind frame as they're playing the game and as they're practicing, and what motions they're going through mentally as they're going through the motions physically.
And Garvey, give us a deep dive. When you talk about your audience, and the unique visitors up to 100 million that are visiting Twitch, who does that consist of?
So it's an international platform. We're all over the world. It's a 120 million strong community at any given time, 24 hours a day. There's 550,000 people consuming live content on Twitch. So it spans the globe. It's really, the internet has broken down a lot of regional barriers, and it's just esports is esports now, and I don't really like to classify North America and Europe. To me, it's esports as a whole.
In comparison, these numbers are larger than NBA finals. This is larger than your Masters finals.
The only day out of the year right now in traditional sports that gets more viewership than esports is Super Bowl Sunday. And we're quickly catching up. I believe last year we had 3 times the viewership of the Stanley Cup on one League of Legends event, as Monty has explained.
That's incredible. Now, Akshay, I had to wait for you last because as a professional franchise, the 76ers, you guys are already looking into the future. Why make this investment now?
Yeah, so, the numbers are staggering, right? And there are more people who are watching. People trot these numbers out all the time, that there were 52 million people who watched the League of Legends World Championships this year that were held in Los Angeles, and I was lucky enough to be able to go to LA and be in the Staples Center and watch this go down. Unfortunately, our team wasn't playing, but it was an incredible experience, and it's a very unique industry in that the numbers are huge, but the businesses are tiny. For any of the investors out here, there cannot be there's no better sign of opportunity than something like that, right? Where you see the demographics, as appealing as they are, right? The majority of people who are watching this stuff are young men, 18 to 35. That's an incredibly hard demographic to target. There's a number of brands out there that are constantly looking at ways in which to market to such an audience. And anywhere where you have an opportunity to invest behind a space where there's an amazing number of people watching, but the businesses are small, it's the sounds, the bells of opportunity just rang too loud for us to not get involved in. And we think we're lucky we found a couple of partners who we really believe in. And I think we're lucky that we got a good financial deal in this, and we think it will be an incredible investment for us.
It's truly an investment into the future. And Dan, so for the audience who are, they're telling their kids, don't game all the time, get outside, get some fresh air. What are the opportunities, and how are you recruiting these pros?
So the opportunities are obviously the salary that was outlined earlier.
We're talking potential college scholarships here. How are you identifying the talent?
So at Maryville, we actually give full rides to our varsity students, which is crazy because a lot of the times these students, they come from a background where they aren't very well off, and so maybe their parents couldn't afford for them to play in like a actual sports league. So they spend a lot of time on the computer. So to give them the opportunity to go to college when they wouldn't have been able to otherwise and compete at the highest level and make money in a non-NCAA regulated event is pretty cool. The recruiting process, so you kind of have to have someone that's in the know in the industry. You have to be a hardcore gamer to kind of see who's going to be really good. That's just in terms of mechanical gameplay, but you can also look at mindset. It's a very mental game, so mindset plays a huge part in this game. You have to be very mentally strong because these players at the highest level, they go from playing in their parents' bedroom for 12 years to playing in front of tens of thousands of people at the Staples Center on a stage. So you have to be able to train these kids that have maybe not been the most social throughout their whole life to become the person that can be in front of that many people. So it's a challenge. You have to have someone that's very knowledgeable in the industry to get to that point.
Hey, and so one quick thing, so something you said a little bit earlier, Khalia. A lot of people have come to us and they've said, hey, this is an investment in the future, right? And the future of esports is really powerful. But I think it's important for those of you, especially who are not that familiar with esports, the numbers that we're talking about, these aren't future numbers. Like, this is happening right now. And so when people say, hey, what's the future of esports? Esports has already overtaken the NBA. It's already overtaken the NHL. It's already overtaken golf. This is just an opportunity to monetize an industry that already exists. I mean, there's very little that needs to be done to extrapolate these numbers out when they're so big already.
No, that's a great point. Christopher, tell me, what does owning a team mean? There's this, you're spending a ton of money. Tell me how you make money.
Well, right now, frankly, as Akshay will tell you as well, it means losing money, to be blunt. So we can talk about the numbers. We can be losing money. It does mean losing money. I know what you're paying for your players, Akshay. I know you're losing money. But in any case, it's an exceptional opportunity, like you say, and when we talk about the demographic, this 18 to 35-year-old, so, people of my generation, who are cord cutters, right? Or
He excluded me.
you're too old, Garvey, sorry. But I've never had cable since I went to college. Like I've never, and it's our generation that is part of this, right? And they're very difficult to market to for that reason. So even though what we're talking about is, the demographic is very valuable for marketers, we're still catching up to being there. And in terms of owning a team right now, what you have to consider is that basically the huge problem of esports is that the intellectual property, the IP, is owned by the developers of the game. So nobody owns the IP of basketball, right? So you're always going to be, to a certain degree, at the whim of the developers, the companies that created these video games.
Which is a tremendous amount of power.
It's a huge amount of power. It is the central problem of esports, right? Is that you don't necessarily, the developers have to be nice to you, basically, and some of them are nice, and some of them are less nice, or more controlling, or less controlling. There's a huge field of developers out there. And so what we're working towards is that kind of monetization, right? So as a team owner, your only source of revenue, you have two sources of revenues. One of them is sponsorship, and the big sponsors are sort of slowly starting to trickle in. We call them, endemic sponsors, which would be, gaming, keyboard, and mice manufacturers, people who exist, companies that exist in the gaming industry, and non-endemics, which would be Nike, So non-endemics are starting to trickle in now, and that's kind of the hope for the future, as well as getting actual localization, stadium setup for ticket revenue, media broadcasting rights. The advantage to being a team owner with the developers having that IP is that you have an access to a revenue stream which is in-game monetization. For example, in Counter-Strike, a game that's created by a developer named Valve, they will sell your logo in the game as a sticker that you can put on your guns in the game. So you can actually get cut of the money of items, digital items that are sold in game, which is a revenue stream that does not exist. And that is one of the big advantages that hopefully will be seen by more developers moving forward.
And the sales numbers on those skins are absolutely staggering. The Dota 2 prize pool is basically raised completely on in-game sales.
Yes.
Do you want to tell them how much that prize pool was?
Yes.
What was the exact figure? It's over 20 million, right?
$26.2 million.
So the winners of that tournament, one of them is 16 years old, went home with
$5 million. $5 million each.
$5 million each. Yeah.
So Garvey, that's a perfect segue. Tell us how Twitch plays a role in that. You know, streaming is now reshaping the entire future of sports in all platforms within sports. How does Twitch work?
So I think it's really interesting. If you look, we spoke a lot about the demographics, but demographics is a small piece of the pie. I think engagement is really, really, truly important. The old way of doing business was having a good product and having a good service. That's kind of old-fashioned now. It's got to be product, service, and the experience. So it's engaging these young cord cutters that, as Christopher said, they don't use cable, they don't consume traditional media, they consume it on the internet. So on Twitch, and I can only speak for Twitch, but we have 120 million strong community around the world. We're the second most engaged community on the entire internet. Number one is Netflix, and we measure engagement by average viewed minutes per person on the platform. So Netflix is number one in the world on the entire internet, and they have an engagement of 109 minutes per person for their 40 million subscriber base. Twitch is a little bit less. We're at 106 minutes average per person, but our community is 3 times larger, 120 million.
Now, mind you, you're not watching a movie. When this is Netflix, you're watching a show, you're watching a movie. You're purely engaged in a
Absolutely. So what does engagement mean at least on a live streaming platform? It means that you could be in a chat with 1,000, 110 people, 100,000 people of like-minded individuals. You can express yourself and be accepted. Besides that, you can have direct interaction with individual broadcasters. So as we talk about, imagine being able to go into Kobe Bryant's head and be able to ask him questions as he's practicing, and he'll give you a little bit of the thought process behind why he's actually executing on something. So I think it's that kind of deep engagement with both the broadcaster and like-minded individuals that bring engagement to a community that has cut cords and wants to consume content the way they want to consume content. And it's got to be authentic. And that's where I think live comes in. You can't edit. And if you broadcast, most of these broadcasters broadcast maybe 6 to 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. It's extremely hard to be inauthentic for that amount of time consistently. If they can add consistency to something like that, I'd like to know how they did it. So it's all about authenticity and engaging your community and making sure that they feel comfortable and they have, I know the byword now in colleges is safe places, but it's a safe place for them to come and express themselves and not be judged.
And I think, that's what I really love about esports. What really drew me to it in the early days was that it's a very personal community in that way. You get to know the interaction that you have with these professional players that have hundreds of thousands of Twitter followers is exceptional, right? You really do have the ability to sit there and engage with them on a more personal level than you do in the professional sports world. And not only that, but what I love most about esports is that it's a globalized community, right? I live in Korea, I do English broadcasts out of Korea, but I have fans all over the world, I have interactions with people all over the world, I have friends, and people are able to see and personally interact with a large variety of cultures. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about esports is through platforms like Twitch, because the Korean teams are the best, the Korean players are the best, there's a huge amount of interest in Korean culture and language that results from this, and it really is a remarkable global community that extends beyond just the gameplay or the titles, and into a very legitimate interest in expanding people's horizons.
Do you want to maybe expand on how far ahead Korea actually is?
They dominate everybody in an unbelievable fashion.
Basically, their gamers are their pop stars over there.
Yeah. I mean, in the Korean market, so for example, the teams in Korea are owned by giant corporations such as SK Telecom, KT. These are telecommunication providers. It'd be like Verizon, Samsung.
These are billion-dollar companies.
Multi-billion-dollar companies in Korea. So they own the teams in Korea. The baseball teams, the basketball teams are also owned by these same. So they are viewed by the Korean corporations as an extension of their athletic programs that they run in baseball, basketball, et cetera, et cetera. So the market is pretty capped right now in Korea. It's about as big as it's ever going to get, considering it's a nation of 50 million people and you have these massive corporate investments already. So it's very prevalent.
Now,
It's incredible, right? Like, there's a documentary about this kid Faker who's 21 years old.
Yep.
He's to use a basketball analogy that's been overused. He's the LeBron James of esports, and he has to do it's like a corny movie. Like he has to wear like sunglasses and a fake mustache every time he goes out because he is just getting mobbed. It's unbelievable, and it's no different than if if LeBron James or Steph Curry were to walk around the streets, and I'm assuming it would be very difficult for them to get very far. It is exactly the same in Korea. It's not quite that level here.
Actually, tell me, on behalf of the 76ers, this market is heavily Korean-based. I mean, you're talking about 70 to 80% of your viewership is coming not in the States. So why invest on something that's not been adopted here as much in the States, and what is the potential for other owners to kind of follow that lead?
We're planning to move the Sixers to Korea. No, the fact of the matter is, we were talking about this last night, 10% of total viewership of League of Legends, or League of Legends particularly in a lot of these MOBA games, which are the multiplayer online battlefield games, so more strategy-related games, tend to do better in Asia than they've done historically in North America. But at the end of the day, these guys obviously are very involved in the viewership angle. We're involved in the flip side. We don't really care what the viewers are, we care where the money is, right? And all the brands, or many of the brands that are looking to invest behind this are based in the United States. They're based in Atlanta, they're based in New York, they're based in Los Angeles. And they're global brands, and they're looking to attract an audience. And we're making a bet that the trajectory of viewership in North America is only going to grow, right? There's no reason to believe that 10% is going to get any smaller. And so, again, if you have a large audience base and the scale of your competitors is fairly small, then it's a really unique opportunity to go out and pitch those brands and to get some of those sponsorship deals to potentially expand into other revenue streams that exist in the world of professional sports that we maybe have a leg up on just because we understand how to run a sales and marketing organization.
And just to be clear too, when we talk about these numbers, I mean, 10 to 20% of a huge number is still a huge number, right? And these are in esports events here in the States. I came back because I'm doing an event in Vegas. I'm commentating an event in Mandalay Bay, the event center, which is the third major event in that space this year. But they're selling out these huge events. They're selling out Madison Square Garden. They're selling out Staples Center.
In under 30 minutes.
Yeah, so it's still huge, right? It's still huge in this country.
And I mean, everyone has a favorite statistic from esports, right? Because the numbers are staggering. So they sold out the Staples Center in like 7 minutes. No Kobe Bryant game. Not even the NBA Finals sold out as stats, right? So
7 minutes.
so everyone, we had to like beg. We own a team, and we had to like beg, borrow, and steal to get a ticket to this event. I have two favorite statistics. One, your average sports fan across, I believe it's across the big four sports in the United States, but maybe it's across traditional sports, gets monetized for about $52 a year. Okay? That's tickets, jersey sales, concessions, whatever it might be. Your average esports fan gets monetized for about $2 a year, right? There's a huge, now, is the 2 going to go to 52? I don't know, but if the 2 goes to 10, we've hit the jackpot here. The other thing, and this is less on the monetary front and more just a excuse my language, a holy shit moment that I had. We were visiting the offices of Riot Games. Riot Games is the publisher of League of Legends. They have, I spent time at the Google offices, the Facebook offices. This is the most incredible office complex I've ever been to. The office is in Santa Monica, and it's shaped like a map from the game, with characters all over, like game characters, like it's unbelievable. They have the largest kitchen in Southern California. It's incredible. But
And falcons.
Right.
Falcons that just...
yes, that like circle. So we're walking by.
2 falcons. This big.
And so I spent a bunch of time at the league offices at the NHL and at the NBA. And for those of you who've been to the league offices, there's usually a room that looks like a command center. It's a bunch of televisions, and they're looking at various games. Right. We walk past the equivalent of the command center. First of all, it's bigger than anything that exists at any league office. And as we're walking by, the CEO of Riot Games, one of the founders, tells us that, in terms of video bandwidth usage, the largest use of video bandwidth, not surprisingly, in the world is pornography. The second largest is Netflix, and the third largest is League of Legends viewership. That is the third largest use of internet bandwidth.
That's crazy.
It's unbelievable.
And so, Dan, we talked about what's happening internationally. What's the potential and probability of something like this occurring in our backyard in St. Louis?
I think it's very high. I think that what opportunity St. Louis has here is to create a grassroots approach to the industry, create local land centers that get kids out of their house, because the big thing is the way people see esports right now is this gigantic, we sold out the Staples Center, we did all this stuff, but it's really not that. It's the 10 guys that go over to their friend's house and game all night. That's what esports really is at its core. And if we can get those people out of their friend's house and into a LAN center or into events here in town, we have the jackpot.
Or into college.
Or into college, yeah. I want to create opportunities for gamers here locally in St. Louis to get degrees because of how good they are at video games.
So this is
To have like one and dones in esports.
that would be crazy.
Like think about the conversation that we created.
So, gentlemen, we've talked how much, astronomical numbers. We talked salaries, we talked viewerships. Let's talk challenges. How are you finding coaches for these teams? What are some hurdles that we're hitting within the world of esports?
I'm personally very glad that Akshay and the 76ers and other professional sports teams are coming into the space, because one thing that esports desperately needs is professional sports team experience, both from a business, because it is very much a Wild West, and frankly, basically nobody is qualified to do the jobs, including myself. When I was
We were hiring based on how many years you were a World of Warcraft guildmaster at one point.
Yeah, it's just to say that situation is dire is an understatement. So I'm hoping that more people like Akshay and more professional sports teams, what I want is for them to come in, because while people have strategic expertise when it comes to degrees in coaching, sports psychology, effective training, these are all things that we have a long way to go to get to.
And look, we were the first sports team to invest. Subsequently, the owners of a handful of teams have invested. So Peter Guber and Ted Leonsis, who own the Golden State Warriors and the Washington Wizards, invested behind an organization called Team Liquid. Recently, allegedly, Wes Edens, who owns the Milwaukee Bucks, invested behind an esports organization. Rick Fox, former NBA champion.
Shaquille O'Neal, A-Rod.
Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, there's a bunch of folks, minority investors from Sacramento Kings. So there's a couple of challenges, right? So as we view it from a team ownership perspective, it's a non-salary cap sport. So we own an NBA team and an NHL team, but we also own an English Premier League team. Sports with no salary cap are tough because it becomes a race to the top in terms of how much people are willing to pay the top players, and all of a sudden you find that you're bankrupting yourself because you're paying players so much, right? So that's a challenge. Like I said, the business is small, right? People aren't being monetized, and there's a long ways to go to actually turning this into a big business, which the opportunity exists. It's just that people haven't necessarily focused on that. And so the influx of new money, whether you consider it sophisticated or not, is good and bad. And the good is hopefully there are more professional owners who are coming in, who are professionalizing the industry, who hopefully get together and create a formal set of rules that create a structure around esports the same way that there was a structure that was created around the NBA or the NFL or the NHL or Major League Baseball. But as a result of new money coming in, that also means that because there's no salary cap, it's driving player salaries up, it's driving coach salaries up. And until and unless you don't see the commensurate money coming in on the revenue side, I mean, you don't need to be a genius to know that if the revenues aren't going up and the costs are going up, like you're
Right, you can't maintain that. That's not sustainable.
yeah, that's right. And our hope is that the new owners who come in don't think of this as being a bottomless pit of investment dollars, but do want to, similar to us, operate this at what's an annual operating profit.
I felt like, Christopher, you had some weigh in on that. I saw it coming.
No, I just wanted to just like shift the conversation a little bit because, I mean, you were asking about, what does owning a professional team look like? And I wanted to talk a little bit more about the future because right now when we talk about team ownership, these are not localized teams, right? There's no St. Louis team that exists. These are all very nebulous teams that sort of exist in the ether. They are from basically, they're not attached to any locale. And so localization is going to be the next, in my opinion, big step forward in esports, is that we're going to start seeing teams next year, as a matter of fact, because one of the new hot games on the market is a title released by Blizzard, which is one of the biggest video game developers in the world, called Overwatch. And Overwatch is an up-and-coming esport. The game's been about 6 months old, and Blizzard has announced that next year they are going to start their own professional league, and they are requiring that team owners buy into a franchise model, which will be the first real franchise model in esports history in the States, and that these teams will be rooted to individual locations. So this is actually a giant step forward. Will it work? I certainly hope so. We'll find out. This is a bit of an experiment for sure. And so that's what we, St. Louis may well, we were talking in less than 6 months' time, have a bid and have its own domestic, local esports team for this type of football. And I think
identifying these pros.
Yeah, you can talk about this a little bit
Dan,
more.
please
The
tell us
Cardinals
how
and the Blues might have some competition.
How are you identifying these pros? Since it's so numbers based, you can see who's striving, who's at the top, to build this team and build the staff around it.
So the games have a ranked leaderboard, which is where everybody picks from right now, for the most part. You have some scouts that are able to pick players that aren't on the radar at all, but for the most part, there's a ranked leaderboard that you can kind of get an idea. Oh, this player must have some sort of talent because he has the 50th best rank in the world. So that's a good starting point. But past that, it's all mental. Like a player can have all the skill and none of the brains necessary to compete at the highest level.
And the collaboration part.
And the collaboration part. You need to be able to work in a team. When you're a gamer that sits in his bedroom and hasn't really ever been put in his place and is the 50th best player in the world, you start to get an ego and it makes you hard to work with other people. So you have to be able to dial those players back and have them work in an environment where they're all working together as opposed to these people working alone.
It's also that the leaderboards are, it would be like there was a pickup basketball game international competition where you could go up the leaderboards. It's an indication maybe of raw skill, but not necessarily an understanding of how to play in team strategy. So there's usually an education of these players where it would be like saying, this guy's got great skill, in a pickup game, but he needs to learn how to play basketball with all the strategy at a professional level. That jump is actually pretty huge.
And so right now teams are picking up players when they see that they have talent. Where what I want to do when I hopefully bring a franchise to St. Louis is start to build an environment where we're actually able to develop our players from when they're 15 years old all the way up to when they become professionals, all the way through the collegiate level, and create an actual dedicated system to developing talent that isn't based on the leaderboard. I want to bring players that are maybe in gold ELO and maybe train them somehow to become top players in the game.
So we're talking about collegiate a little bit, and this can show a little bit where the industry is going in terms of sustainability. Early 2014, there was 0 schools that were looking to do anything with our industry. On the end of 2014, the first private school started working with us and created a varsity eSports department. That was Robert Morris University in Chicago, Illinois. Then through the work of many people in this industry, as of this year, we're at 25 colleges that have official varsity eSports departments. 2 state public schools have started. One is one of the biggest in the country, University of California, Irvine, UCI. They have, if anybody wants to Google UCI eSports, you'll see what they've done on their campus. And you can see a little bit now about sustainability, where we're going to go with this. We're missing a lot of pieces to this puzzle. We're missing you, we're missing accountants, we're missing IT specialists that understand live broadcasting. We're missing business people that understand the very unique monetization model that we have, which is mostly built on revenue share, which I love, and I'll fight to the day I die to make sure that we keep it in there. What's good for me is going to be better for you. What's good for you is going to be better for me. This mutual reciprocity is just inherent in this industry. More and more young people are starting to understand. The more Dan does, the more I travel around the world, going to colleges and speaking to college presidents, letting them know what opportunity are there for students, therefore what opportunity is there for the institution itself. So now things are starting to pick up. We're starting to tie in some of those loose ends. We're starting to get some trained professionals that understand the industry and have been trained to contribute their personal little gift that God gave them and contribute to our industry. But we're missing, we're like a Fabergé egg. It's really beautiful to look at. Don't look too close, it's very fragile. So we need more people like you to get involved. We need different expertise to come in and help us grow this industry. We need more young people. We need to empower young people. So you ask, what is eSports? eSports to me is opportunity. Opportunity for whomever might want to grasp it. And by and large, it's mostly young people.
Now, and that's a great point, Garvey, because Dan, you guys are doing just that. You guys are engaging those young people. Tell me a little bit more about how you're doing that and kind of what's next with you.
In terms of Maryville?
Yes.
Okay, so we actually have, in terms of quality, the best collegiate team in the world at Maryville right now. Our team is 95-0. We're undefeated over 2 years, and what we're doing with these players is I create Robert Morris and UCI have hundreds of kids scholarship in their programs, but what I do at Maryville is I have a very intimate role with the players. We have 7 kids that are on substantial scholarship as opposed to a bunch of people on partial scholarship. And what I do is I really train these players that are maybe done playing as a professional or maybe weren't quite good enough to make it. I train them to transition into the management side and the business side of the industry and kind of teach them what I do every day. And the goal here is to get potentially a program started here at SLU, get one started at WashU and all the colleges in town, so we can create kind of a hub here where we can churn out industry members that are going to have a big impact in a good way.
It's pretty amazing, right? Like, obviously I wasn't alive when the ABA and the NBA merged and the NBA was created, and I wasn't alive when the NFL was first created, but like for us, this is our first opportunity to see an industry being born out of nothing. And a good friend of mine who was a former GM of an NBA team, he always used to say that the one statistic he really wished he had, the one stat that he would pay an unlimited amount of money for is, for every player, their statistics from every game they ever played, including one-on-one pickup with your little sister, 3-on-3 ball at school, high school game, middle school game, elementary school game. And he always used to say that Kobe Bryant was probably like the champion of this statistic, right? He wouldn't have lost in a one-on-one game against some kid. We have that information in this industry, right? All of this data is being logged somewhere. All of these games that are being played, we have all that information for the first time. Really, I mean, UFC is the one comparison that gets made a bunch, but really for the first time we have the opportunity to see the birth of a sport, to see the birth of an industry, and it's awesome to be along for the ride.
So that's perfect, because when we talk about traditional sports like football, basketball, soccer, how is that shaping now the conversations with these team owners? Because right now, the games that are being played, this is pure imagination. I mean, this is things that you couldn't possibly ever do in the real world. So what's the appealing side to now take that into traditional sports?
Well, I mean, eventually, I think that in the long run, there isn't going to be, if we're talking 40, 50 years in the future, there's not going to be a differentiation between esports and professional sports, because as we move into a world of virtual reality, where my theory is like, okay, basketball's great. What if you could take those athletic skills and put it on the moon, or do crazy stuff that you can do in virtual reality? Nobody's going to watch traditional sports when you can do way cooler stuff, you know, in a totally virtual environment. So we are eventually going to see a merger, I think, between the two. But that is very far in the future.
And Akshay, how does this play a role right now with you?
So I'm not sure I buy that. Maybe. I think, look, I think people are going to watch sports into perpetuity. But you know what? A lot of people have said that they thought a lot of technologies or a lot of different human habits would be around forever, and they're not. I don't know that virtual reality is ever going to replace sports. I think esports, competitive gaming, call it what you will, is its own thing, right? And we've been very cognizant of that. You know, a lot of people, when we first made the investment, asked, "Are you going to cross-brand, or is there going to be some kind of a geographic affiliation?" And we're like, no, like, we're making this investment as a financial investment. We're not making this investment as a way to cross-populate databases of people who are playing esports with people who are coming to Sixers games. Like, it just, we look at this as a standalone entity that will attract individuals because of the number of people who are watching it, because of the obvious visual appeal. And, you know, I think, again, I caught myself making this statement once where I said, I think esports could be as big as the NHL. I'm like, it's already bigger than the NHL, right? It's already bigger than Major League Baseball. Like, more people are already watching this. The real question of the success of this industry will hinge on our combined ability to actually monetize it. Because if the business side of it goes away, the incentives for people to actually participate in the industry go away as well. So I think the success or failure of esports, which has already by every means been a success, but the continued existence and growth of the industry really depends on the hands of the owners to be able to figure that out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if there was esports way before there's any money in esports. And there'll be esports way after there's no money left in esports. But we would like to see it grow. We would like to see it professionalized. We love that they're getting involved, and they're gonna bring a whole new aspect to our lives. But I hope that there's respect for the way that we do things as well.
You see the passion in the business side here. That's what you guys are watching.
We've been knocked down a lot, so there's been a lot of bumps along the road. We've had some form of investment back in MLG in 2007, and the industry kind of died off in North America after that. And we had a resurgence in around 2011, and since then it's kind of taken off. But this hasn't been without bumps.
There's no looking back now, though.
Well, a lot of this too is going to, like, the next couple of years, Riot has spoken about franchising League of Legends in 2018, and to give you a sense of the slaughter, yeah, to give you a sense of the scale, like when we talk about the future and more people like Akshay and the 76ers getting involved,
And you all?
yeah, and you all hopefully. For example, this year for Overwatch at BlizzCon. This new esport that's doing the franchise next year, there was a mixer of about 120 different professional owners, current esports teams, and then professional sports teams, including people like Dan Clerke and
Don't say that.
who we're gonna. Sorry.
I promise I will never lose to Stan Kroenke.
Yeah, and Robert Kraft, you know, a bunch of people who were there, but Blizzard invited them, and all of these professional owners came to scope out the esports space. So it's becoming more on the horizon of other professional sports teams besides teams like the Warriors or the 76ers or the Sacramento Kings as well, that are looking to invest in these franchises moving forward.
Which is key because, I mean, actually, you are speaking the language to these team owners in order for them to get this. Because this is, I mean, for, I would assume, half the audience at least, some of you are like, wow, this is really cool. And the other half is like, wow, this is terrifying. You're telling me my kids are going to be merged with other people, potentially losing social skills. What does that mean? What does that mean for our future? So it's a flip side. It is a double-edged sword. Where do you guys stand on that for the naysayers who are like, you know, what's next?
Keep limiting screen time. I think that's healthy. Don't be like, oh, you can make 50 year now. Go play video games all day as much as you want. Yeah, I'll make you hot pockets.
Because we see youth sports go to another level. Your kid, 5.
I mean, but it's no, right? It's no different, right? Look, from a physical exercise perspective, sure, right? Like, is competitive gaming bad in that you're just sitting in one place? Sure. If you're doing it 20 hours a day, anything is bad. And as you said, we've seen that with youth sports where parents are pushing their kids.
You don't want to go too far.
You don't want to go too far, but I think there is a little bit of an unfounded fear of, oh my goodness, this kid's going to sit in front of the computer, they're not going to be social. I mean, it's the same kind of fear, right? When I'm old, I'm going to have the same fears, but it's like an old person fear. Like, it's the same fear that exists with cell phones, and it's the same fear that exists with social media. And it's just like, this is the new world. Like, this is it, and sure, people should be out there getting exercise.
Christopher, I'm begging here.
I mean, this just makes me really frustrated because I agree. Like, I don't think that. I think you should limit screen time. I think you should. But realistically, when you think about that, very few people are going to push their kids to become professional athletes because we're talking about 0.001% of people that play any sport are actually going to make the big money, right? It's not a smart career choice. Like, if you are that driven and that passionate and that skilled that you can get there, wonderful, there's big money, there is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but I don't think most people would be pressing their kids to be professional athletes or professional gamers. I know, even though I exist in this industry, if/when I have kids, I'm certainly not going to advise them to be professional gamers. I think it's idiotic.
Garvey, just to conclude, what are your thoughts on that as we wrap up?
I'd like to talk about esports as a sport. Are they athletes or not?
We don't even have time for that.
I'll just say
We don't have time.
one quick thing about that. These esports stars do up to 250 precise controlled actions per minute while they're juggling arcane mathematical formulas in their head. And this is per second that they're doing 5, 10, 15 things at one time. This is all hand-eye coordination. This is all snap reflexes. This is all the new medical field. Like, nobody's cutting with their hands anymore. Everything's hand-eye coordination and precision of movement. And these esports stars, again, 250 controlled, precise actions per minute while they're juggling all these arcane mathematical formulas in their head. So I think that qualifies as a physical attribute and mental acuity.
Without question, I think you all know that you're leaving here far more educated than you walked in, I'm sure, about the power of esports. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Thank you.